Alright, check this out. Here are the basic stats for 3 Premier League stars over their first 7 seasons in England, up to the end of the 2021-22 season, of course. There isn't really anything significant that separates them, right? Well, what if I were to tell you that 2 of these players were consistently put on par with the best players not only in the EPL but in the world during their stints in England, while the third has only ever really been thought of as a great player. Now, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that title, but there are levels to this, you know. That third player? Son Heung-min. The first 2, Eden Hazard and Sadio Mane. Your perception has probably already shifted somewhat after the reveal. Of course, stats alone never paint the full picture when it comes to performances, but they certainly don't mean nothing. Son Heung-min is one of the best football players on the planet. I think we're all pretty much on the same page there. So, I completely understand the confusion that some may have when looking at the title of this video and then comparing that to what I've just said about us all agreeing that he's one of the best players out there. The truth is that Son has been performing at an extremely high level for almost as long as he's been on the international stage, but I've never truly felt that he was praised as much as others on his level, a belief that's festered slowly after seeing him get snubbed of nominations and accolades time and time again despite outputting some of the best season-long individual performances out there. Just go ahead and do a Google or YouTube search on quote, "Is Son underrated?" unquote, and you'll see that there is no shortage of people who share this viewpoint. Both on the pitch and off the pitch, it's hard to find a fault in this guy. This week, I wanted to take a look at the events that have led our guy to where he is today, and also put my tinfoil hat on and list a few possible reasons for why a player of this caliber is, in my opinion, so underrated. Yo, what's going on, guys? Hope you're all doing well. I'm Tinashe and welcome back to another Football Iconic video. If you wouldn't mind, and also if you haven't already, it would be pretty cool if you hit that subscribe button, trying to hit 200k by the end of the year. But at the same time, if you're not keen, that's also chill. I'm just happy you're here. Anyway, as always, so we can get a better understanding of the subject of today's video, the best place to start is the beginning. Born in Chinchan, South Korea in 1992, Son Heung-min was born as the son of former player Sun Woo-jung. From as early as he could walk, he decided that it was football that he would be looking to pursue in the long term. His father, of course, gave no objections and was happy to train him. But according to both parties, the training was relentless. Hours upon hours, every day, training and drilling all the basics into his son until it all became reflex. There was a widely reported story a couple of years ago about how when Son was 10, his father would make him and his brother do keepy-ups for up to 4 hours without dropping the ball once. I guess that gives you some idea as to how relentless his training was and how far he was being pushed. But it wasn't just ball skills that were being hard-coded into him. It was the mentality and essence of the game. In the words of Son himself, "My father told me when I was young that if I was through on goal but an opponent fell and hurt themselves, I should put the ball out and check on the opponent. Because if you're a good footballer but don't know how to respect others, you're nobody." And it's clear as day to anybody that's been paying attention that that foundation of hard work, as well as the motivation from his family, as well as probably quite a lot of luck, has paid massive dividends for him. Up to 2008, Son had been developing in South Korea with Seoul Youth Academy. As part of an exchange program through the Korean FA, he was chosen to go abroad for a year and train in Germany. His destination? Hamburger SV. And I guess he made quite the impression, as 1 year following his trip, he was formally signed onto the Hamburger Youth Academy, a huge opportunity that he grasped with both hands. And apparently he was so committed to making things work that his agent claims SpongeBob SquarePants episodes played a large role in teaching him German. Anyway, it didn't take too long for Son to be known as a dangerous man. His acceleration on the wing and quick reactions were an absolute nightmare for Bundesliga defenders. Starting more and more games, scoring more and more goals and improving game by game. And the debate regarding which of his feet is stronger is one that's been raging on for years now. And it doesn't look like much progress has been made in that regard, if we're being honest. 2012 was massive for him, as it can be seen as the year that he truly broke through. Growing more and more into himself at Hamburg, his progression was evident, which is exactly why Bayer Leverkusen broke their transfer record for him, shelling out 10 million euros for the man. A seamless transition saw him slide straight in and score 21 goals in the league over the 2 years he spent with them, with 5 Champions League goals to boot. Tottenham Hotspur had seen enough. After being shafted by West Brom in their pursuit of Sadio Berahino, There's a name I haven't heard in a while. Son was signed on for £22 million just prior to the 2015-16 season of the Premier League. It's obviously worth noting that this period didn't just mark a shift for Son, but in the general atmosphere and conversation around Spurs. In Mauricio Pochettino's second season at White Hart Lane, Kieran Trippier, Toby Alderweireld, and Son Heung-min had joined the ranks. Collectively, the team went to work on making the team a mainstay in the upper end of the table. But despite Spurs improving as they were, Son's first year in England was quite stop-start. He only started in 13 games. He was obviously frustrated, and rumours of his desire to leave for more minutes were growing. But Spurs and Poch thought it best for him to stick around for just a bit longer. So we've seen this kind of story develop in the past, right? It's pretty classic. A player can't get their way, so they start throwing their toys out the cot. Now, Son certainly could have done that, but instead, he chose to stay and fight. And by the next year, he was not only a starter, but he was proving to everyone that he was indeed the full package. After 1 year and the summer, he is a different person. He's more mature, and he knows the league, and he has settled in fantastically now. The words of Poch following a brace by Son against Middlesbrough. Alright, so now that we're all caught up on Son's journey up to Spurs and some of the context around his early days, it's time to directly address the motivation behind this video, while also talking about him as a player and personality. As I mentioned earlier, Son has been one of the best players in the league for quite some time now. I mean, on several occasions, I'd even go as far as to say that, albeit intermittently, he's been the best player in the league. Now, I completely understand that that may be interpreted as a bold claim to some. That's fair enough. So how about we talk about how good Son Heung-min is? He is extremely explosive with one of the deadliest finishing touches out there. His decision making in the box is more often than not fantastic, mostly because scoring is at the forefront of his mind in those situations. He's pretty good at that. A slight remark is that he's not the most proficient when it comes to operating in tight spaces. His feet are quick, but slowing the ball down and being deft has never been a large part of his game. Of course, this hasn't actually been all that much of an issue to him, as he specializes in running off the ball into spaces behind the defense. On the opposite end of the spectrum, his defensive work rate is also top tier, tracking back and helping out the defense as needed. Goal-wise, his scoring record has been top drawer ever since his second season at Spurs, and has experienced a notable uptick in the past 2 years, particularly last year where, along with Mo Salah, he shared the golden boot with 23 goals. However, Son did it with no penalties. Salah scored 5. Speaking of his striking abilities, it's notable that at the time of recording this video, he has scored 96 Premier League goals. 41% of them have been with his so-called weaker left foot. 55% have been with his right, and the remainder have come from his head. His conversion rate alone put him in the category of the elite. 27% last season. By comparison, Mo Salah achieved the same number of goals with a conversion rate of less than half of that last year. Meaning, Salah had to take more than double the amount of shots as Son to score the same amount. Yet, Salah is firmly in the Ballon d'Or conversation, and Son, well, if you care about things like XG, i.e. the likelihood that a shot will result in a goal based on the location of the shot, the type of shot, the pass before the shots, and all the events before the shot, and many more other criteria, Son has also excelled. As a matter of fact, he's excelled since the very first day he stepped foot in the league. In the 7 seasons prior to the current one, he equaled his XG in his first year and has consistently outperformed it ever since. And perhaps above all, from a pure aesthetic and entertainment perspective, he is not only a scorer of many goals, but also a scorer of very beautiful goals. Long-range power drivers, curled finesses, solo efforts, he's got it all in his locker. He even has a Puskas award to prove that last one. So I'm pretty sure you've clocked by now that we can kind of go on all day about his scoring abilities, but I think we're all on the same page at this point. But it's not just about scoring. When it comes to providing, he's also elite. Taking last season in particular into account, he was in the 92nd percentile in the Premier League for key passes and the 90th percentile for expected goals assisted. Not bad at all. Going full circle, perhaps none of this would be possible for Son without an elite mentality. A hard-working professional that never stops working and puts the team above himself. I don't care where I play. The main thing is I'm in the game. I can play as a second striker or behind. Whatever the coach says, I'll do. I don't have a favorite position. I'll be anywhere and always on the throttle. This is a quote from Son during his Hamburg days. He may firmly be an attacker now, but I think the sentiment around that quote remains true to this day. Extracts like that, as well as the earlier quote I mentioned about the ethos of sportsmanship he gained from his father, paint a telling and admirable picture about the man. A fantastic ambassador for his country and one of South Korea's greatest sporting exports. Certainly their greatest footballing export, I would say. The effort he puts in doesn't go unnoticed. Speaking of which, Son was able to avoid South Korea's compulsory military conscription by winning the Asian Games in 2018. Despite this, he still had to undergo military training with the Korean Marine Corps. In typical Son fashion, he finished in the top 5 out of 157 participating trainees. Always an overachiever, as we can see. Given all of the above, I don't think anyone can deny that the man is great, but it seems like a lot of the time, that's as far as the conversation goes. The PFA Players Player of the Year award is considered by many, especially actual pros, as the most prestigious individual award in English football. After all, many of the voters are professional footballers themselves. This is the 6-man nominee shortlist from last year. All great players who had great seasons, don't get me wrong, and Salah winning in the end was also highly deserved. Most goals and most assists? Yeah, no question, dude. However, Son is somehow nowhere to be found. At the very least, I've got Son over Ronaldo, Mane, and Kane. Similarly, he never even made the PFA Team of the Year. These are just the latest pieces of evidence in a discussion that's been brewing for quite some time now. So, what's the deal? What's stopping Son from reaching the true upper echelon? Ladies and gentlemen, all 3% of you ladies out there, 3.1%, oh, it's growing. It's officially tinfoil hat time. There are a few popular theories that you'll hear people talk about when it comes to explaining this phenomenon. However, I just want to focus on 3 in particular. First theory. He is not British. It's a simple enough premise. If he were British in the land of the Brits, perhaps he would be held to a higher regard and be given more recognition when it comes to these awards. Well, as of February of this year, Son, along with his partner in crime Harry Kane, are the most potent attacking duo in Premier League history. Kane is the face, captain and frontman of the Three Lions, so you would expect the bias to be firmly in his favor, right? But even he was snubbed of any of the major individual awards in the EPL after winning the Golden Boot and having the most assists in the 2020-21 season. That's right, the one directly before last year. In any case, more evidence that this theory doesn't hold much weight is that no English player has even won the PFA Players Player of the Year award since Wayne Rooney in 2010. Gareth Bale was the most recent British player to do it, and that was in 2013, almost 10 years ago. And apart from Vardy in 2016, every time an English player has won the Football Writers Association Player of the Year since, again, Rooney in 2010, it's been a controversial decision. So I wouldn't say that there is any clear and obvious English or British bias with these awards. And as far as public perception goes, Mohamed Salah and Kevin De Bruyne aren't English either, but have been widely considered the 2 best players in the league for almost 5 years now, I'd say. Does race and nationality have anything to do with how people perceive players? Well, I mean, you'd be a fool to think otherwise. We all have unconscious biases, even the purest among us. Does it have anything to do with how people perceive Son? I mean, yeah. Probably. Like any non-white or foreign player in Europe, he's been subjected to chants from empty-headed so-called fans for several years now. Luckily, and I mean this is just wishful thinking on my end, these people are in the minority. A high-profile instance of this came in 2017 when Millwall fans were chanting that Son sold DVDs. A strange Asian stereotype, I guess. Perhaps this shouldn't be surprising though. A vocal minority of Millwall fans do have somewhat of a reputation. Having said all of that, I still firmly believe what I previously said, that in a league that primarily consists of foreigners, I don't think that's the reason why Son is snubbed so much. What I really think it is the second theory. And I don't think that most of you will have seen this one coming. He plays for Spurs. That's right, I just baited all of you into watching this video just to say,
it's the history of the Tottenham.
Okay, but I'm obviously joking. Actually, I'm only half joking. It's a popularity contest at the end of the day. I don't think anyone can convince me otherwise. If Spurs win a couple trophies or Son plays for City, Liverpool, Madrid, Bayern, even Man United, then this video doesn't exist. And before the inevitable, if that were true, then why haven't any of the bigger clubs you just mentioned gone for him? Argument comes out. I have 2 things to say to that. The first one is, yes, they have. And the second thing is 2 things, or rather 2 words. Daniel Levy. Since moving to Spurs, he's never had less than 2 years on his contract at any given time. Long-term renewals have always come through like clockwork, meaning a move away would always cost major bread. Also, I don't think he wants to move. He's probably quite settled. He lives in flippin' London and he's a millionaire. That sounds great. Actually, come to think of it, I don't think the location matters. It's probably just great to be a millionaire anywhere. And finally, we come to the final theory. And this one will be quick. He is unfortunately nowhere near selfish enough to get into top 5 conversations. He's just too much of a team player at heart to develop that killer instinct that makes other wingers/inside forwards rack up the awards. In another life, maybe he does. I think that there is a lot of truth to that last one. But best believe that if he played for one of those larger teams with his already existing numbers and his already existing temperament, the conversations around this guy would be vastly different. That second theory stands head and shoulders above the rest. And there we have it, my admittedly opinionated take on a player that I'm a huge fan of. But what do you guys think of Son Heung-min? Let me know all your thoughts in the comments below. Feel free to follow me on all the socials, links are in the description. That is all for me today. Hope you guys enjoyed, hope you're having a great day. Cheers, and I'll catch you in the next one.